Hi, it's Tuesday night at 6:30, so it's time for What We're Reading. Tonight, I'm very excited to have some graphic novel lovers with me to try to convince me to read a graphic novel. If you're like me and have a hard time kind of getting into it, I've got some people who can help you tonight. I've got Chelsea and Joel. They're both from our service center in our patron services department. So if you call KDL's number and are looking for a branch librarian, you're getting Chelsea and Joel, and they're fabulous, and they can help you with almost anything that you'd want to have a question with about KDL. And also tonight I've got Hannah with the Wyoming branch. Hi from Wyoming, Hannah. Okay, who wants to start us off with the best graphic novel for this old lady to learn to love graphic novels?
So,
Hannah.
I understand. However, being a graphic novel geek, I'm aware that there is a wide variety of graphic novels to choose from. So what I have to share today are autobiographies and memoirs. So these are going to be nonfiction.
Okay.
Are usually done by the person that the book is about and then illustrated by someone else. Sometimes it's illustrated by the same person. Like one of them in particular is that way. But for the most part, the story is by the person. They're illustrated by someone else who's fabulous. And the first one is actually The Best We Could Do by T. Bowie. And
Bowie?
T. Bowie.
Bowie, how do you spell that?
B-U-I.
Thanks.
Yeah. Which you can get this in physical book form and ebook format on Hoopla, which is a really nice format if you haven't done ebooks before. I recommend it. There's no holds. You just go, you get it. You're good to go. It's really nice.
Are the graphics good on Hoopla?
They are wonderful. This particular one, I just screenshot it, but I'll show another one that I've downloaded from Hoopla, and I can show you how nice it looks on the tablet.
Hey.
But this story is a refugee story. It's the story of her whole family that fled Vietnam after the Vietnam War to the United States, and talks about the trauma of displacement, trying to find your place in a completely new environment, and being a first-time mother as well. Just put that all into the mix. And
get a little closer.
Yeah, what's nice about the art here, which is going to be a little tricky to see just because it's on a screen and it's mirrored, is she uses a lot of neutral colors. And what's nice is this is one of the people that both illustrates it and it's her story. So you can really, the author writes with both her art and the written text. And it's just a very moving story. It's kind of nice to have a refugee story that has a pleasant ending, and it's just a good one.
Oh, you gave it away, Hannah.
Not good.
Okay, so what do you think the pictures add to the story?
It does a great job of showing the emotion behind the wording, which is what makes graphic novels so great. Is there can be a word, like let's say, I wish this was done. It was just a simple sentence. It can be hard to know the emotional drive. But with the illustration, you can see what the author is trying to portray in that moment. So George Takei is a good example, which I will bring up later, where it does a really good job of showing the emotion behind the sentences and how people like word things and might look polite, but you can tell from their body language, not so much. So it's really good for that kind of stuff.
Okay, give us another one. Oh, should we go on to someone else, Hannah? Should we give you a break?
I can talk and talk, so I'm going to give other people a chance.
Okay, Joel, how about you? What have you got for us?
So, I really enjoyed How to Be Happy by Eleanor Davis.
Okay.
It's a short story collection. So each story is kind of like a little vignette. The majority of them are drawn and illustrated by her. So you have, not sure. And so she just kind of displays a lot of different styles. Oops, I'm going the wrong direction. And her writing's just beautiful. I got into this maybe like 2 months ago, and Chelsea knows because I've gotten everything else she's done through Melcat, but we have a couple of her books at KDL, so that's great. But yeah, just really uplifting. It's not. It's really human. That's what I like about it. And like Hannah was saying, sometimes the images just help portray so much. You don't have to tell such a long story to get all the emotion that maybe a 300-page novel would. So,
yeah, I've never seen a short story collection done in graphic.
I really haven't either. I've seen shorter, collections, but this is really interesting. It's easy way to dive in.
Yeah, that'd be a fun first try. You can just read a story and decide if you like it or not. Should you pick them at random, or is the first one the best, Joel?
I'd say start at the beginning, because there's definitely a flow to the book. So.
And does it in fact tell you how to be happy?
She actually warns in the beginning that it doesn't. But I felt kind of happy afterwards, and she talked about some of the books that influenced it. So. In the beginning. So it's kind of interesting. There's some stories about death. There's some stories about longing, but in the end, it's just this very human realization. We're in it together, and we can make the best out of it.
Acceptance at the end.
Yeah.
Okay, Chelsea, what have you got? Chelsea.
Oh goodness. For sure. I mean, Oh, can you hear me? Sorry.
You're a little stifly, but push on.
Anybody?
That's better.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, cool. I'm doing it. Awesome. So for me, I'm an opportunistic reader. So my best kind of lure to get you into reading a graphic novel series would be kind of just to take you back to the roots and go with a kind of an interesting spin on classic fairy tales with a series called Fables. I believe the full title of the series is Fairy Tales in Exile. It's fantastic. So we all know these characters. These are your folktale characters like Snow White, her sister Rose Red, Prince Charming, of course, like Beauty and the Beast, all of these characters that you know. And you can see Hannah's helping me out here with displaying it for me because I'm
Thanks, Hannah.
tech challenged. But I actually read a lot of these using our Hoopla app, which was fantastic. And as you can see, it plays it really beautifully, which is great for a graphic novel. This series, it's all just your classic fairy tales, but they've been exiled from their classic stories. So they're here in modern day New York, and you find out what they're doing, how they're choosing to blend in with humanity. They actually refer to the rest of us as like Mundies, which is short for like mundanes. So we're not a part of any story, and our belief in them is actually what grants them their power and their sentience in our world.
Okay.
It's so the lead character that you follow in the first issue of it is actually the big bad wolf in human form. So he's the one that you follow through most in the first story arc. And so you get to know a little bit of everybody because he's actually investigating a crime among the rest of the classic tale characters because, surprise, surprise, it starts off with a murder. So, fantastic
Big Bad
little
Wolf
way
did
to
it.
get you into the series. Like I said, it's mostly mystery-based at first. You would think. And you know what? He's not exempt as being a suspect, especially when you find out who the victim was.
Was it Little Red Riding Hood?
So fantastic series.
Well,
She
thanks,
actually comes up later on. She's declared dead in this universe at first.
So poor Chelsea has a little bit of a delay and a little bit of a fragmentation. So we'll see how you're doing. We get back
Sadly.
to you, Chelsea. And I'm going to head off to Hannah. Hannah, I know you've got about, what, 12, 14 books there for us?
I mean, I could go on and on. Great restraint for me today.
So give us another one.
I'm going to bring up, this is one that is probably the most well-known one out of the bunch, and that is March by John Lewis. So by the late John Lewis, he wrote his autobiography in a unique way. He wrote his story of his life in the civil rights movement via a graphic novel.
Really?
It's a fabulous series.
He didn't draw it, though. Who drew it?
Andrew Aiden and Nate Powell were the
Okay.
illustrators for it. And it's beautifully done. And knowing that John Lewis lived through this and it was illustrated, it's just really cool.
Oh.
So, and it's all done in black and white, which at first is like, oh, that's kind of boring. But it lets the pencil style really show. Like the example I was bringing up earlier, where a sentence you might kind of lose like the intensity of it, where this cop says you're nothing but an outside agitator, but you can just see the seething disdain.
Yeah, and the finger.
And the finger. You can see the whole emotional experience just because of that illustrative slide. So if you have any interest in the civil rights movement, this is just a beautiful work. And it just moves me every time I read it.
Yeah.
It's a really nice first-hand account of the civil rights era in the 60s.
Now, would you say that was appropriate for adults and, say, teens, or
I'd
what would
say
you need to cut out?
probably a little more adult. Like they bring up the Birmingham, Alabama bombings because that's where he is.
Right.
And a lot of people died during that, and that's definitely brought up. I wouldn't say it's gory, but there are mature themes because a lot of mature stuff happened. So for that, maybe I'd say more older teens.
Okay. I bring it up because a lot of times I feel like the graphic nonfiction that we're getting more and more of in the kids section is such a great way to introduce them to historical events, or they've got science ones now too, that are graphic novels. So it's a real great introduction. Kids don't feel like they're doing their homework quite as much when they're reading those. So I wondered.
It's intense, but it's a really good way to learn about something and not a big, thick nonfiction book that would be hard for teens, especially teens that aren't so into reading big, chunky nonfiction. I wasn't that kid. That's just a good way to get into it.
Yeah, and to learn to like reading.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Joel, what you got for us next?
So maybe this isn't something that's going to win anybody over. But
I win me over if it's the one.
So I love Captain Ginger.
I was gonna say I'm
so much.
It's
Captain Ginger?
The Captain Ginger. So it's kind of Star Trek meets Planet of the Apes. You have a crew of sentient cats, humanoid cats, who have been abandoned on a ship by their owners, which they called the feeders, because they fed them. And they're just trying to run the ship. Some of the cats on the ship evolved into humanoids. Some of them stayed cats, just traditional cats. And so there's just this, who are we? Why do we exist? While at the same time fighting off other spacecrafts where sometimes you don't know who's in them. And it's just a fun story. nothing too serious. Just you kind of sit down, enjoy it for what it is, and you put it down and you say, like,
I read a space story about cats.
exactly.
I know a lot of librarians who are both cat lovers and graphic lovers who I would recommend this to. Probably they already know about it, though.
So I don't want to give too many spoilers, but volume 2 is for dog lovers as well. So
Oh,
I do.
It's a whole world. It's a world building experience.
Yeah.
Perfect.
how's the drawing in that one, Joel?
It's a very
glorious.
traditional
I really
style.
recommend it.
So if you ever saw like comics in the 70s through 90s, that's kind of the idea.
It looks like a superhero kind of style, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Kind of have that action adventure.
Yeah.
There's nothing too fancy about it. I'm trying to get in the light here. But yeah, it's
Very
fun.
colorful.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, you just get a sense of adventure, kind of like, reading the Sunday Funnies or something. But yeah.
And for cat lovers, though, I mean, you don't see a lot of
Sure.
cat heroes.
No.
Nothing but them.
They don't really lend
Not
themselves
really.
to heroics usually.
And that's
No.
in the book.
It is in the book. It's so
They
much.
have like behavior traits.
Yeah.
Okay, Chelsea, do you want to try again? I know you're hobbling along on a partial connection there.
Yeah, I'm doing my best. I mean, I guess my next recommendation, Joel, you kind of broke the ice with your whole like, hey, you know what? I like it, so here's my weird recommendation. Anybody who likes like H.P. Lovecraft, classic sci-fi mystery sort of thing. It's this really strange little comic series. It's short, so like Fables is a commitment. I'll warn you right now, that has multiple like things it carries on for a lot of books. This one is rather short, so it's a lot more manageable. And it's just that old-fashioned called Who It Been. And this one is also available through Hoopla. And one of the things that I want to say drew me to it right away, especially to this particular story, was that its artwork is strange. It's really like that old school looking sepia toned sort of thing. It's like every panel you're looking at an old photograph. But there are certain things in the artwork that just really pop. And yeah, exactly. I was going to say Hannah's got it up on Hoopla there. And it's just beautiful. Like, it's really strange and wonderful. I still, to this day, I've read the series multiple times. I will warn that the ending left me still puzzling to this day. I don't know what it means. I still go back to it from time to time, and I read it through again, and I take it in.
Okay,
and I still
so
don't
if you
know.
don't mind
So it's a great
ambiguous
little
endings.
mystery.
All
And
right.
Exactly.
fun tip, because Mike Mignola did this one. If you like the art, he did a lot of Hellboy comics. So, and if you like Hellboy, anything by him and Hellboy is really good too.
Yeah, so
Okay.
if you want that. Fantastic.
All right, Chelsea, you made it through another one. Good job. Yay. Hannah and Joel, either one of you have another one you want to throw up?
Yes.
Yeah. I will.
Right.
So many. I think I'm going to bring up. I've brought him up lightly. George Takei wrote a autobiography about his life in the Japanese internment camps when he was little with his family, called They Called Us Enemy. And I'm bringing it up on Hoopla. It's available in physical book form and on Hoopla. I'd actually recommend this one on Hoopla because the extended edition is on this one, which
Okay.
is bigger, better.
For sure.
It's not in the book? That's interesting. You can only get it on Hoopla?
You can get in physical form too.
Oh, okay.
It's just an expanded edition just came out. And
Okay.
Danielle doesn't have a physical copy of it yet, but it's on Hoopla, the extended.
Gotcha.
And I mean, and I say, yeah, and I will say that the physical copies have been going out on Mel Loan like hotcakes. Like,
we all think everyone
you know,
who's watching us
they've
might know what
gone
that
out a
means,
lot.
but some people don't know
So
what
that's
melon. Meaning they're going out to other libraries and other libraries.
Oh my gosh. So sad.
No, those are
For
other
sure.
people at the end of those loans reading them too. So that's great.
And what's nice is this, you can get it. I literally thought of it 10 minutes before this,
Mhm.
put it on hold, put it on here, downloaded it, and was ready to go. But this is a really pretty autobiography. He did not illustrate this. He worked with Eisinger, Scott, and Becker to get this done. But it's very moving. It's a good interpretation of his life in the internment camps. I think because it does a really good job of showing that when you're a little kid and you don't realize how messed up a situation is, you're not going to necessarily see it in a negative light. There's parts where he like really enjoys one cabin over another because it's closer to the bathrooms, and it's like the biggest deal ever. Or the time where he went on one field trip outside the camp, and that was like a huge deal. It really portrays that well, and it shows him growing up with other kids, but at the same time, with the little kid point of view, noticing his parents just struggling and trying to make the best out of a situation that's not so good. So, and what's kind of fun is he kind of brings up his Star Trek days a little bit too.
Oh, cool.
It does a good job of kind of easing the heat, because sometimes this can be very heavy, and he does a good job of balancing the heavy themes with the lighter themes, so you can just kind of get through it, feel like it was worth reading, glad that you read it, but not being emotionally devastated for 3 weeks.
No, I always think of George Takei as very funny. I mean, is the book completely like his serious side, or does he?
Oh yeah, it's
Okay.
He just brings up that it wasn't all awful because he was a child, so he still had his parents, he still had his family with him, but it was still an internment camp experience.
Right.
Like there was.
Does he inject any humor into the story, or is it all really?
Yeah, like especially he kind of grows up as an older kid by the end, so being a tween and doing what tweens do, which is get in shenanigans.
Like Chelsea's camera is right now. No, it's back.
Shenanigans.
Exactly.
Like, let's see. I'm going through the whole book here to kind of show you some cool shots here. Like here's the spot where they first went in, which were stables, like horse stables where they were first put in before they were sent to specific internment camps, which is not so good. But then they get placed and they each have their own house, and it shows how excited he was to have his own house. And like here he is as a cute little happy little kid. So stuff like that. It's both a coming to age story and a interpretation of the internment experience. So it's 2 for 1 to that one.
Okay, Joel, if you want, you can finish off with the last one. Do you have one for us?
Yeah, so I have children at home, and so it's nice to be able to read some of the same stuff they do instead of me saying, oh, yeah, you can check this one out when you're older, or who knows. Yeah. So some of you might know Brian Michael Bendis. He was in charge of making Miles Morales, the first Spider-Man of color and such. So he created an imprint for DC Comics called Wonder Comics. And he enlisted a bunch of writers. And most of these writers are masters of dialogue. So you're going to get some of the most emotionally charged or the funniest dialogue you've ever read. And it's great because you can really read it with like a not middle-aged, well, if you're middle-aged, but middle school age.
Thanks, Joe.
So, but yeah, he featured, let's see, Wonder Twins from the classic 70s cartoon show, the Super Friends. So Wonder Twins is hilarious. Coming of age story. They brought back Dial H. And so, yeah, it's Wonder Twins is Mark Russell. He's done he's written some novels and stuff as well. Sam Humphreys, I'm not too familiar with him, but Dial H is a classic story about a telephone. And if you dial hero on it, you become a hero and steal another hero's powers. So you'll see like Superman or the Flash mid-battle lose their powers, and this kid has his powers. He launched Naomi was the original character to the Wonder Comics series, and that's just really cool. Another coming of age story. All these kind of have that coming of age theme, like who am I in this world, and like what's my purpose. And of course, you have like Young Justice, Justice League, and it has some fun characters like Ginny Hex, a great granddaughter of Jonah Hex, and you have this kid Green Lantern. And if instead of having like Green Lantern powers, she figured out a way to like bootleg some out of some old tech, and so all the Green Lanterns are mad at this kid who's able to do the same thing with junkyard scraps. So it's just a fun read. It's well written. You can read it with the family. Once again, I like graphic novels because you don't always have to be serious about them. And just kind of enjoy them for what they are.
Well, yay. Well, that's a good way to leave us. So a lot of good reasons to take up graphic novels, from short stories to beautifully drawn emotions to fun for the whole family to give me one more, Hannah. No, not one more book. One more reason to read graphic.
I've got so many.
Okay, no, I promise. So go ahead and give us that one. What is it?
Oh, it's just Hey Kiddo.
Oh, Hey Kiddo.
Community Reads book that Wyoming did 2 or 3 years ago.
Good one.
It's just another good biography.
Oh, biographies.
It's illustrated and written by the same person, who now does a bunch of picture books.
Nice.
Very cool.
Well, thank you, my graphic novel heroes. I'll try.
Thanks for having us.
Yay. Next week, we've got Matt LaFave from WZZM. So we'll be a little late because he's doing the 6 o'clock news.
Thank you.
And then coming on afterwards. Thank you, Chelsea, Hannah, and Joel. Don't forget to call Patron Services if you have any KDL questions, and you might get one of these two fabulous people, or see Hannah at Wyoming, or me at the Amy Van Andel Branch. I will see you in the library. Thanks for coming.
Bye.